This is Christian Breton of Quebec City, Quebec. You're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, August the 25th, 2024. You're with Sheldon and Jill on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. We're here with our show every week, 30 minutes of news and information of things going on in the world of radio. We hope some of you had a chance to go and check out our special edition of our show that was an hour-long episode that is available on our YouTube channel. We had so much material last week that we decided to run a special. So we know there's been a lot of views of it already. If you're a fan of the show and you haven't checked it out yet, encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. Just look for International Radio Report and you can check out that special edition, a 1-hour episode. We're back with a normal show here today, so we thank you for tuning in. We have some news from AM radio and some names of some awards that are being given out, and some Radio Hall of Fame awards also that have been announced. So we'll start things off with some things going on in our Canadian province of Ontario. We have 3 Canadian AM stations that are starting new programming, and we thank Andy Reid in Peterborough, Ontario, for giving us the story, and also an article about it from Radio Insight. Under new owner N.P. Ray, the 3 Canadian AM stations which he purchased from Bell Media have started new programming and formats. N.P. Ray's CINA radio group has closed on its purchase of 3 AM stations in Hamilton, Ontario, Windsor, Ontario. He has debuted his new classic hits format on 1150 CKOC in Hamilton and 580 CKWW in Windsor. CKWW evolves from oldies to a 70s, 80s based playlist. It will feature Mark Lander and Cara Rowe in the mornings. Lander previously spent 20 years at adult album-oriented rock station 93.9 The River, CIDR in Windsor, while Rowe is a retired professional boxer and has worked for 800 CKLW and 95.1 CKUE. CKOC, which is the 1150 station, most recently carried Bloomberg Business programming. It is now positioning as super hits of the 70s and 80s. Kent Chambers, who most recently hosted afternoons at Jewel 88.5 CKDX FM in Toronto, will be heard in the mornings. Rowe will host middays, and Scott Penfold will follow in afternoons. Penfold has worked across Ontario, 5 years in the afternoons at Classic Rock Y108 CJXY FM in Hamilton from 2010 to 2015. The third station, 820 CHAM, the Cena Radio Group acquired that station, but has yet to set the plans for that station. We had a note from Andy Reid saying that up until now, the what they're calling Big AM 820 is playing mostly ethnic music, but we can't find a web page yet for that radio station. The other 2 stations do have websites. We were just checking them out before recording today, and they sometimes are working, sometimes are not. It seems that they may be working on them. So 580 CKWW Windsor, you can find them at am580ckWW.com. And the CKOC 1150 station is at 1150ckoc.com. So you can check those out. They do have live streaming on both of those sites. 3 stations operating in the province of Ontario on AM.
In our next news story, we talk about the WCBS 880 anchors Steve Scott and Michael Wallace sign off. This is via Barrett Media. As WCBS 880 entered its final week, many long-established anchors said their farewells from the venerable all-news outlet. Michael Wallace and Steve Scott did just that last Friday. The anchors were partners for 7 years at the Odyssey New York station, so it was fitting at the end of Scott's final shift that Wallace would join him to reminisce. Wallace admitted he had been struggling with the station's demise, which Scott agreed with. "I've been numb," Wallace said. "I hate to use the phrase dead man walking, but my wife keeps asking me, 'How are you? You're not really showing any emotion.' I don't know. I'm just numb. I can't really believe it." I think the first day or so there was that shock, gut punch that none of us saw coming, said Scott. But now it's kind of morphing into reality. We spent 7 great years together sitting at the seats we're in right now. We found pretty early on that we were compatible because there are some things that we liked, like when a commercial jingle starts playing. As the former duo discussed some of their biggest and most important moments working together, like covering Superstorm Sandy, the WCBS 880 anchors closed out the segment by sharing their admiration for one another. "I'm glad that you were able to come in because you have meant a lot to me, not only personally, but professionally," said Scott. "I love you like a brother, man," Wallace said. "Thanks for all the great years. Good luck." "You bet," Scott succinctly replied. Note that there's a 3-hour special broadcast from Thursday that is now available on a YouTube channel that will post a link. So if you missed it, you can go and listen to the complete retrospective on YouTube. And you can look for WCBS 880 New York Retrospective Special, August 22nd, 2024, 10 a.m., 1 p.m. And of course, the link will be posted. And if you haven't heard it, you have to go, absolutely go and listen to this. It is one of the great moments of radio, I think, one of those things that you won't forget. It's absolutely wonderful that Odyssey let the staff of WCBS do this, because we have so many stations that just pull the plug and that's it. And you don't have any goodbyes. And I think, part of it, the shock is so big that for these people that were on the radio, I think what's going to be nice is maybe that could help do part of the healing that you just lost your job at a wonderful station, which was WCBS.
Yeah, I listened to the full 3 hours on Thursday morning, and it was really it was a combination of things. It was entertaining, it was very sad, it was moving. There were great clips that were played, bloopers that were played. I don't know how many people they jammed into that station, but there were probably easily 50 or 60 different people in the room that kept popping in and out. People calling in. They even got the mayor of New York call in to talk about the station. They covered these major events: Superstorm Sandy, 9/11 in New York City, the big power blackouts that they've had over the years. Every major. I remember them talking about the story of the airplane landing on the Hudson River. They were there and covering all of these events, and so many people that have been there for so long and trained new people. They even got in touch with some of the retired people who were still out there somewhere, and they were calling in, reminiscing. It was just great radio to listen to, and was very loose. Every once in a while they'd sort of go back to the format of doing the traffic and the weather and that sort of thing. And they missed a couple of those hits at the right time. And like one of the announcers said, yeah, we missed it, but so what? What are they going to do? Fire us? It was really, they took it very lighthearted, but you could really tell some of them were really emotional, and certain things triggered things with people. And it was just great listening. If you haven't listened to it, definitely check out the YouTube. It's 3 hours long. It's worth it. I think you'll find yourself getting through the whole thing. It went by very quickly. Now, the ending is coming. Our show Sunday morning is, it's going to happen Sunday night. So we can tell you all about it. We did mention it on our special show as well. But it'll be midnight on Sunday night, and then 1 minute past midnight into Monday morning is when things end at WCBS. We're curious as to, will ESPN radio and the new call letters that they've applied for start immediately? Will there be a dead air period? What's going to happen at midnight plus 1 minute? We really don't know. One of the announcers has already said that he got the honor of doing the final station ID and the final sign-off, and was so emotional that he didn't think he could do it live.
Yeah.
So that part he had to pre-record. So it means a lot to a lot of people. And from what we heard on the special broadcast, you really heard, and they heard, what the station meant to the listeners. It seemed like they hadn't been answering phones at that radio station for some time, and the phone was just constantly ringing in the offices, and one of the guys decided to pick up the phone, and once he did that, he just kept picking up the phone every time it rang, and it was listeners calling in, to say how much they appreciated the work they did and how they were going to miss the station.
It's been a while since there was such a big moment, I think, in radio, and this one is a big one, and I'll be live on my YouTube channel on Sunday night. I think it's the perfect time to gather around, talk about radio, and have everybody join in. And like you said, Sheldon, before we started recording, it'll be interesting to ask everybody where you're located and are you listening to it live in actual radio. See how many states the signal of WCBS is covering at the same time. Could be very, very interesting. So I think it's going to be nice.
Certainly, we've heard from people down in Florida, and pretty much I would say they probably cover half of the North American continent. The eastern half out to the central part. It's a 50,000 watt clear channel station. It's still going to be a 50,000 watt clear channel station, but it's not going to be all news. It's not going to be WCBS anymore.
No.
I forget the new call letters. We had them, but I don't have them in front of me here. But it is going to be ESPN, and it will be the second ESPN station in New York City, which is really odd. One of them is going to be doing the network feed, and the other one's doing more local New York related sports. So it's kind of odd to have two ESPN stations in the same city. But there's a lot of sports that go on in New York, so they're dedicating one of the stations, which will also be carrying the New York Mets baseball games on that. I think that's on the 660 frequency.
The new call sign, I would guess, starting after midnight in 1 minute, will be WHSQAM.
So that'll be something to listen for as well. So yeah, if you can record it, I think it's going to be something. If you like to record historic things from the radio, might be something you want to record, maybe the last hour or so, or at least the last few minutes, just to have in your archives. We'll certainly try to do the same thing, and that's something we can get posted up on our new CIDX Club YouTube channel. Which, if you haven't checked it out yet, you should, because there's some new recordings that some people have sent in up there, some really historic things. There's a great one from a Hawaii AM radio station announcing the attacks on Pearl Harbor. It's just really amazing listening. So go to our CIDX YouTube channel and check out some of those archive recordings that are starting to pop up there.
youtube.com/@CIDX Club. So what's happening with our sun? Well, first of all, the sunspot number is at a 20-year high. We haven't had so many sunspots since cycle 23, which shows us that the solar cycle 25 that we're in is very strong. There were quite a few solar flares this week. There's a lot of sunspots that could be flaring. Sunspots AR 3790 and 3796 have what it takes to create strong flares. Many of these sunspots actually are big enough to be viewed. If you still have your solar glasses from the April eclipse, use them. You will see some of these sunspots. So there's, of course, the possibility of more activity, more flaring because of all the sunspots on the surface. So conditions will be up and down because of that. Possibility of a G1 class geomagnetic storm maybe today or tomorrow. It's not impossible with all the coronal mass ejections that were out. Sunspot number 175, the solar flux is 230. And of course, once again, this week, some high solar activity, possible of some flaring that could do some radio blackouts at times. and hopefully conditions will be good when they are. And actually, I was listening to some of the signals on Thursday night, and I was hearing China all over the bands, some with the Fire Drake jammers, some with the CNR1 national radio, 19, 16, and even the 13-meter band at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., which was pretty crazy. It's been a long time. And as we're getting close to the equinox, which is, barely a month away, this is going to be interesting. It's one of those times when propagation helps a lot of those Asian signals to come here. So the only way to witness all of this, well, is to turn on a radio and listen.
This is Larry Will of Mount Airy, Maryland, and you're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM, Montreal.
So we mentioned that we have some awards that are going to be given out soon, radio-related. The NPR and CBS News Radio, ABC News Radio are the big winners in the 2024 Edward R. Murrow Awards. This is via Barrett Media. The 2024 Edward R. Murrow Awards announced winners of the prestigious honors Thursday, and NPR, CBS News Radio, and ABC News Radio each saw several victories. NPR, which is National Public Radio, won awards for excellence in diversity, equity, and inclusion, while also taking home the honors for excellence in sound, featuring reporting, hard news, investigative reporting, news series podcast, and sports reporting in the network radio category. CBS News Radio earned top honors for overall excellence. The network also scored a win in the breaking news coverage category for its handling of the October 7th terrorist attacks in Gaza. ABC News Radio scored wins in the continuing coverage, excellence in writing, and news documentary categories. In the large market radio sector, WINS 1010, KFI AM 640, and KYW, they are in New York City, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia, respectively, and 95.5 FM WSB in Atlanta, each earned wins. 1010 WINS won the honor for breaking news. KFI took home the Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award, and KYW saw the title for hard news. 95.5 WSB took home the honor for top newscast. And finally, in the small market category, radio category, 1040 WHO was the only commercial station to earn an Edward R. Murrow Award, taking home the honor for Best Newscast. One Canadian organization was given a Murrow Award in the newscast category. It was The World at 6 on CBC Radio for their report, Attack in Israel 2 days after. For that, the CBC and Radio Canada was honored. A complete list of this year's awards is available at RTDNA website. We'll put up the link for that, and it's a complete list of the Edward R. Murrow Award winners. The winners of these awards will be honored at the Edward R. Murrow Awards Gala on Monday, October the 14th at Gotham Hall in New York City. So congratulations to all those news outlets for taking home some awards from the Edward R. Murrow Group.
So we have the Radio Hall of Fame 2024 legends that are announced. This is via the Radio Hall of Fame. The Radio Hall of Fame announced 8 new legends inductees into the Radio Hall of Fame for 2024, recognizing the talents and efforts of on-air personalities, programmers, and operators who contributed with greatness to the radio industry and have since passed away. Each of the following 2024 legends take their place in the Radio Hall of Fame immediately. So the first one is Chuck Bloor. Chuck Bloor was a disc jockey and program director of radio stations, starting his career in El Paso, Texas, before moving on to Los Angeles in the late 1950s and overseeing music station KFWB AM.
Alan Combs was a radio and television host offering liberal political points of view to his listening and viewing audience. His radio career, including years on WABC AM and WNBC AM in New York City, before being syndicated nationally on more than 100 radio stations via Daynet, a radio syndication venture he co-founded with other radio hosts.
We have Charlie Douglas. Radio personalities have long been the companion to long-distance truck drivers. No one defined that relationship more than Charlie Douglas, who created the original all-night radio show for truckers in 1970 after joining WWL-AM in New Orleans. The Road Gang, hosted by Charlie Douglas, played country music and provided plentiful conversation and companionship to radio audiences, primarily comprised of truck drivers.
Now, here's one I'm really happy to see. This was one of my favorite announcers, Jim Ladd. A few disc jockeys are immortalized forever by record album titles and song names. Jim Ladd is one of them. The Southern California on-air personality was dubbed The Last DJ by Tom Petty in 2002 by a title track of the same name. Jim Ladd was first heard in Los Angeles in 1967 on KNAC-FM before joining KLOS-FM in 1969, where he played album-oriented rock songs and provided commentary on them on the station until 1975. He joined archival station KMET-FM in 1975, staying on the station until it changed formats in 1987. He returned to KLOS to host an evening program on the station for 24 more years, often offering commentary on culture in addition to discussing the music he chose to play. In 2011, he joined Sirius XM as an on-air personality, staying on air until he passed away in December of 2023. Jim Ladd's 50 years on broadcast and satellite radio has been recognized by a wide number of organizations, including receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
We have Byron McGregor. Byron McGregor is known best for his many years on air in Detroit, Michigan, on both CKLW-AM and later WWJ-AM. His most distinctive voice and news delivery style was a cornerstone of CKLW's AM's Big 8 2020 news broadcasts. McGregor had become news director of the highly rated radio station by the age of 22, which was capable of being heard in 28 states and 6 Canadian provinces.
Maria Martin's voice was heard on radio stations for 50-plus years. Born in Mexico City and raised in Northern California, her own voice on radio amplified the voices and perspectives of Latin Americans and Latinos in the United States. Maria was first heard on the first Latino-owned community radio station in the U.S. at KBBF-AM in Santa Rosa, California. Later, she joined National Public Radio and became an editor of their program Latin File. Maria Martin was the network's first Latin American affairs editor on their national desk. She left NPR in 1993 to launch Latino USA, an English-language radio program that reflected the views of the experiences of the Latino community.
Percy Sutton. Percy Sutton founded Inner City Broadcasting in New York City in 1970 and became a radio station owner in 1972 when the company purchased its first station, WLIB-AM in New York. The company later purchased WBLS-FM in New York City before purchasing radio station in 10 U.S. cities. Percy's leadership guided the staff at each radio station to program rhythm and blues music, and later urban contemporary music. Talk radio programs also played on a role to the inner city broadcasting's programming, as did community service. Each radio station's programming was a mirror to the community of listeners, where opinions on culture, entertainment, city politics, and relationships were welcome on the air. The radio stations flourished in both ratings and revenue, as founder and chairman Percy Sutton became known as the godfather of urban radio as a result of his leadership with the radio stations.
And finally, we have Rusty Walker. Walker was a country music radio personality and radio station programmer before becoming a prominent consultant to many country music formatted radio stations. His work and contributions led to countless radio stations experiencing rating success for sustained periods of time. He fostered the career growth of fellow radio station programmers to become consultants, as well as sharing his best practices for success with many talented individuals over several decades. Rusty Walker founded Rusty Walker Programming Consultants in 1983. The consulting firm helped more than 500 radio stations with music selections, air personality coaching, promotional support, and music industry relationships over the course of time. So these are all very deserving, I think, of these special awards. The Legend Awards, which is a special category that the Radio Hall of Fame has. I've run into a few of these over the years. Definitely Jim Ladd was one of my favorites, particularly the last years that he did on Sirius XM on their Deep Tracks channel. Was one of their most popular shows, I'm sure. And he died rather suddenly, and it was a great loss to the world of radio broadcasting, as it was with so many of these people that have been honored.
Yeah, it's sad to see that all of these great names passed away, but at least they're recognized here in that Hall of Fame legends. So that is really nice.
It'd be nice to get to the Radio Hall of Fame someday and check it all out. They supposedly have some really nice exhibits and tributes to so many different people and stations and what have you. So put it on the bucket list of places to go and visit sometime.
So we have a upcoming ham radio contest.
Yeah, it's a quiet week for amateur radio contest, but there is an event going on. The Colorado QSO Party, 1300 Zulu August 31st to 0400 Zulu September the 1st. That's organized by the Pikes Peak Radio Amateur Association. This one is a little more complicated than some. It's on a number of different bands. HF, covering 160 through 10 meters, excluding the WARC bands. All VHF and UHF bands, including the 6-meter band. And specifically, all amateur bands are included except WARC bands, and all of the different bands above VHF and UHF. So it's a really wide covering event. There are no repeaters that can be used and no satellite QSOs either. So it's going to be in the modes of phone or SSB, CW, and digital, such as radio teletype, PSK 31, FT8, I guess, FT4, all the different ones that are available. So this one should keep people busy, no matter what aspect of amateur radio you're in.
And we are out of time.
Yeah, it's a little bit different show today, but it was nice to recognize all those people with the awards and the radio stations as well. And don't forget WCBS ending Sunday evening tonight at midnight plus 1 minute into Monday morning. If you'd like to reach us, you can do so. radioreport@yahoo.com is our email address. Our show is live streaming and archived at ckut.ca here in Montreal. Our Facebook group has 3 new members this week. International Radio Report is the group. We welcome Sean, Anna, and Bruce. Bruce is in Scarborough, Ontario. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@IRR. We have over 1,000 subscribers. You can subscribe to the channel there, and that's where you can check out all of our programs, including our special edition from last week. And our X account at IRRCKUT. We have 45 followers there. We can invite you to follow us on the X account. So that does it. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you'll catch the final CBS broadcast later tonight. It should be a lot of fun and really a historical radio event that we're sure you all will want to be a part of. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next Sunday on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Bye-bye.
27 in Suffern, 26 in Ridgewood, Queens, 24 in Lower Manhattan.
This is WCBS and WCBS FM HD2 New York.
Snow is starting to accumulate. Meteorologist Dan Pinanowski will have everything you need to know in 4 minutes.
This is WCBS and WCBS FM HD.